It was the best of times, and it wasn't exactly the worst of times, but bad enough times that it gives you cause for concern. Carson Fox with you for a basketball edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports, recapping the month that was for the West Virginia men's hoop squad. And it was a very high of high months, but also had some rocky spots. Starting it off, let's go all the way back to December 31st, New Year's Eve, with a absolute historic win on the road at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, the first time ever that the Mountaineers had won there against the Payhawks of Kansas, 62-61 on the road. Love that. And also the highlight of this month being on January 18th, a Saturday rockin' night at the Morgantown West Virginia University Coliseum, a 64-57 victory over the number 2 in the nation, Iowa State Hawkeyes. That was 2 of West Virginia's 3 top 10 wins for the season. And as of last night, so I don't know if this has necessarily changed in the last 24 hours, but West Virginia was tied for second in the nation for top 10 wins on the season. So in Darren DeVries's first season ever in Morgantown. And that is why this is, the thing that I feel like I've come to learn and feel about the college basketball season is if we can't sit back and enjoy a feat that head coach Bob Huggins, who whenever he resigned, was the active wins leader in Division I men's basketball. If we can't, that he never did in 12 seasons of West Virginia being in the Big 12 under his helm as the head of the program, or 11 seasons, however many it was. If Darren DeVries can come in and do that in year one, and something that Bob Huggins' teams never was able to do, we have to relish this journey, not necessarily look at this season as the destination. So that is where I kind of want to lead off with this program and putting it into perspective. Though it was an up and down month, 4-5 wins over Kansas, Oklahoma State, on the road at Colorado, home against Iowa State. There's your 4 wins, but losses at home against Arizona by 19, on the road against number 10 Houston by 16. And the Arizona State home loss was maybe the most concerning. And we'll talk about that and, some of the reasons why that was. Last Saturday at Kansas State, who was just at their record for this season, has not lived up to expectations so far. Still a lot of season left, but with all the money that they spent in the transfer portal trying to compete this year, 73-60. And then last night, one of the worst scoring performances, at least by lowest total output, I can think of in a very long time. 63-49, felt like an old Big East battle, losing to number 6 Houston at home. But just why those wins against Kansas and Iowa State are most important is because, again, it's all about the resume. If we're going to care about the destination in the Big 12 and NCAA tournaments, that it's all about the resume at the end of it. When it comes time for Selection Sunday, that is what they're going to look at, not necessarily your wins and loss record, because as we talked about in the preview to the season, West Virginia got in 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament with a 40% win percentage in conference play. That was the Eric Stevenson-led team with Emmett Matthews. So that's kind of where I was using this season as a barometer coming into the years. If West Virginia could go out there, and let's readdress this one more time, if West Virginia could win 3 of those 5 big non-conference matchups, and by big, not playing against mid-majors or worse, like a team like Mercyhurst, who is Division II, that if West Virginia could win 3 of those games, and they did, Georgetown, Gonzaga, and Arizona, and then win 40% in league play, that this, in my opinion, finishing the year at 17-14 with a brand new coaching staff, with brand new players, and then now with Tucker DeVries, arguably the team's best or second best player, And Jaden Stone, who was coming into the year, scoring last year at Detroit Mercy over 20 points per game, not having them getting to this point, that is, if they could still finish that on the year 17-14 with a win at, beating Gonzaga, beating Kansas at Kansas, and number 2 Iowa State, then I'm happy. Again, sometimes it's not always about the destination. It's about the journey. And so far, we've been able to, as Mountaineer fans, enjoy some really nice regular season wins. But I know it's not that important. At the end of the day, it's what happens in March. So that is the flip side, and I'm going to talk about that. So why there is so much cause for concern for a team that's still 13-7, still not by any stretch of the imagination up of a top 10 team in the country. I don't think anyone's saying that this team is Final Four or national championship caliber, but it can do some damage in a tournament setting. The reason for cause for concern, obviously the absence of Jaden Stone, but more so Tucker DeVries, continue to be dark clouds that hang over the potential for this season. Now, West Virginia has 7 of 11 of its remaining regular season games against teams that are tied or lower than West Virginia in the Big 12 standings. And 5 of those games are at home of the 11. So there is a lot of reason here on January 30th, year of our Lord 2025, to have hope that the schedule provides opportunities for West Virginia to go get 8 or 9 conference wins for the entirety of the season. So they're already at 4. So can they win 4 or 5 more games out of that 11? And that's where they're hitting 40 to 50% of their Big 12 record. And what helps is because it already has this bolstered ranked wins list that was extremely important. If they would have won, I was hoping that home game against Houston, you could have sealed the deal right there. That was incredibly important to win that home game against Houston. But they're the hottest team arguably the hottest team in the country right now, and they got dudes. They got some dudes. They got some bangers. They got some bodies. They're really a complete team right now and playing extremely well. So, but we'll talk about these things. So, I think that West Virginia, national brand recognition, should receive the benefit of the doubt to get in, especially if it can make some noise in the Big 12 tournament. We can see what happens with there. But the reason why there's so much cause for concern, and I've recognized this after watching many of these games in January, the recipe for success to slowing down the Mountaineer offense has been discovered, and that is throwing the kitchen sink defensively at point guard Javon Small and forcing enough scoring from WVU's secondary and tertiary scorers. And, Toby Akani and Sincere Harris really like these guys. Really, really like them. I'm not being critical, but they're defense first players. That's so to again ask them to go out there and score double digits regularly. You're asking, while continuing to give you what they do defensively, you're asking for more than what you feel like in a whole team nucleus, whole team fit. Joseph Yusufu is really hot or really cold. He can come up with some threes in some moments where that can be make or break. The Kansas game especially. He is a great outside shooter, but then just sometimes, and I know that the effects of the Big 12 physicality, I could see him a little bit frustrated, especially there at the end of the game in the second half, kind of forcing up a real deep three that you're just like, well, what are you doing there? I mean, the game was pretty much at hand at that point in time, but you can just see he's not 100%, comfortable, I feel like, in his role, but also, again, wishes probably he could be a little bit more consistent if he was 100% healthy. Jonathan Powell is an electric three-point scorer. Having him as but he's a freshman. So, he's playing increased minutes. He's one of the many Mountaineers who are feeling the wear and tear of the Big 12 season, as I mentioned with Yusufu. And again, just look at his stat numbers on his three-point shooting these last 3 games and losses, and that tells the tale. Eduardo Andre is most lethal in spurts off the bench. I mean, he was awesome in that game against Kansas. But now you're in the dog days of the Big 12 schedule. You're not playing Mercyhurst. You're not playing Bethune-Cookman, North Carolina Central, where, I mean, that was I was really nervous going into the season. Man, your first game is on the road at Kansas. Whoa, what easier of a contest could that be? But that seems to be like a blessing in disguise because those guys were really fresh at that point in time. With the Christmas break and playing all those non-conference teams that aren't really necessarily world beaters. So Eduardo Andre, watching his minutes, managing his minutes, especially in these back-to-backs where you have a Wednesday and then a Saturday, like road contests like West Virginia's going to play. It's tough. It's really tough. So it really comes down, in my opinion, to Monty Hansberry, and he's just been really, really streaky since his ankle injury in late December. So ultimately, the statement I'm trying to make here is West Virginia needs Tucker DeVries and Jaden Stone. Need them for their secondary scoring. They would be their primary scorers there, especially Tucker alongside Javon Small, because he just can't do it alone. If you're just going to ask him to have the ball in his hand, playing 36 plus minutes per game, having every single offensive set run through him, and it's up to him whenever the shot clock is going off to try and find somebody else open, take a double teamed or extremely contested shot, or he gets clogged up in the lane. You're asking him to be Allen Iverson on steroids. So West Virginia is now dropped to 280th in the nation. 280th in the nation out of 352 teams in offensive points per game. I know you're playing Houston, the best defensive team in the country, but 49 points against them just ain't going to do it. 57 against Arizona State and 60 on the road, I know, at Kansas State just ain't going to do it. And I'm just not really understanding the rationale for this ultimate secrecy behind the absences from head coach Darren DeVries and what he's talking about. I mean, and unfortunately, this is because of the climate that is created because of the NIL pay-for-play landscape in which we live. And I am not that far removed from the days of Sagaba Konate in his, junior season, where there was this weird injury that the doctors say he's cleared enough to play, but Sag says he was hurt, shows up for all of the games and, sits the bench, warms up with the team, goes through the motions. You're thinking he's going to play, or by being there on the sidelines, he was trying to make some sort of a comeback that never happened. So I'm not trying to compare apples to apples here. I'm just saying I'm thinking there's a ton of fans out there like me who just don't understand the strategy of the cards that are being played by Darren DeVries. I mean, if you want to come out here, I would just say the indefinite was a strange competitive move, strategic competitive move here, if you want to say that. Because I think it's creating more consternation for fans than it is any sort of advantage that he perceives against any sort of opponents on WVU schedule. Just come out and say it Stone's out for the season. If that was the case. I mean, he has now been out. The season opener, I had to look this up, feels like just yesterday, but the season started November 4th. So he was out before that. This is now a 3-month injury. If it was a broken hand or a broken wrist, I had to look this up earlier today, usually can cost players somewhere in the ballpark of, 4 to 8 weeks. So what are we talking about here? I don't, and just the secrecy behind it is if it's something personal, if it's something, he could leave it at that. I've only seen a couple of tweets or listened to some other YouTuber shows, seen on social media. It sounds like there's something more here to Stone's absence that I don't know. But it's just, you'd like to have him on the floor and you wonder where he is. spoke really, well going into the beginning of the season. Really excited to have him as a Mountaineer. Just like to see him. And for DeVries, again, upper body injury came right after the Georgetown game. That was Friday, December 6th, though he's coming up now on a 2-month injury. Again, if he injured his shoulder to the point in which it just doesn't make sense for him to, he would be more, either he's risking himself to further injury that would perhaps cost him his playing career, and or you just don't know to the extent of what's happening. Like, I just think these are details. I know that we don't have injury reports in Division I football, and that's something I talk about all the time that kind of irks me. But for as much money that is bet on these games and TV contracts and just the money that goes through in today's collegiate world, why aren't we owed any more of an explanation, and why doesn't DeVries just be truthful on this or come out and say, like, we're attempting to get Tucker and or Jaden Stone healthy by a certain date? Just going through these games, and the question that's now come up pretty much since December 6th, since the day we knew that Tucker wasn't going to be playing, is, should Tucker just redshirt? And where I stand on this, and I know I've already beat the drum about it's more about the journey and not the destination, but I say no. I mean, already this team has shown that on any given day, it can beat a Gonzaga, it can beat a Kansas, it can beat an Iowa State. So it can beat anybody, truly. So why not go for it? I can understand the argument about using him for redshirting, using a medical redshirt, coming back, being that senior leader. He's only played 8 games, so why, come back and play a full schedule? Well, nothing's guaranteed in life, y'all. Nothing's guaranteed. So you don't know what could happen tomorrow. I'm not saying, like, that's kind of ominous, Carson, but you get where I'm saying is he could re-injure that shoulder. There's going to have to be another NIL package put together for him to keep him in Morgantown or elsewhere. Or he was a projected, like, second rounder, bordering on the edge of being a first rounder coming into this season. Now, I don't think he showed in just 8 games that enough to help that projection, but I just feel like it's no guarantee anymore in today's climate of college sports that anything is guaranteed beyond the season that you have. And with so many guys, this is more of a football, so I don't want to go off the tangent, but guys like self-redshirting and opting out, it's like, I think if he can come back by February 25th, that's against TCU at home, it's not senior day, or March 1st at BYU, that's it. It's if this sport is all about March, and that's all we care about, what is, get him. We know what the potential is for West Virginia with him in the lineup, and it's pretty high. So if you get him back in the lineup for 3 to 4 regular season games, then the Big 12 tournament, then the NCAA tournament, go for it. I mean, Raekwon Battle missed half the season last year because of his fight against the NCAA, and he still came back and played. So I know it's not optimal if you're only getting Tucker for 15 games, for this season, when you could potentially redshirt him, bring him back, but you're not going to get Javon Small next year. Yeah, there's a lot of fifth-year guys. There's a lot of seniors on this team. Sincere Harris, Amani Hansberry, KJ Tenner, Jonathan Powell, and then some McDonald's All-Americans, and that's awesome. Awesome in itself that we haven't had the time to talk about with Darren DeVries already in his first year of recruiting. So you could have a really nice team coming back, like a nucleus to next year's team, and then what else you additionally can do in the transfer portal. But I think you could go for it. I think there is just as good of an argument, let me put it this way, that you can make for, yes, Tucker should come back right at the end of the regular season if he's 100% healthy. Because what does that say if a guy is healthy and, he's got teammates, he's got soldiers on his sideline that he wants to fight for. They're your teammates. They, sweat, bleed, break with you. So go out there and play if you're healthy to do it. But I also undersee the other side of the long-term game. And I think this is probably, a family decision, both between, because, Darren's got to play dad, but he also has to play coach. And, Tucker came with him from Drake, upended kind of his life and career there to come play in the Big 12. And yeah, he got 8 games to show for it, but if he wants more, then I just think it could help everybody's outlook for the season. And maybe I'm just being overzealous here, or a little bit like my opinion. Nobody cares really what you want and what you think, Carson, but I'm just saying from a fan perspective, and I think there's probably a lot of folks out there who think just like me. So that's West Virginia can be better than 17-14 on my initial prediction for this season if Tucker comes back, and especially if Tucker and Jaden Stone come back. There's definitely that potential, because that takes a lot of pressure off Javon Small to be able to go and do Javon Small things. Otherwise, the blueprint is found by these Big 12 defenses on how to stop West Virginia. So it's going to just take these others in these secondary and tertiary scoring roles to be able to do what they do best, but also score the basketball better. And where I think that could really start is, and this is nuclear, this is really nuclear, but it's like desperate times call for desperate measures, is, some of these guys, again, the wear and tear on their legs, the increased minutes that they're playing, the physicality, all of that. I know you got guys who are supposed to be in redshirting roles, but 2 forwards who I really could think help out in the rebounding department. I'll talk about in a second. Can Ofri Neve come back? And, I know you'd hate to burn a red shirt more than halfway into the season. Abraham Iodiator, I'm not sure on the pronunciation, sorry, but get some big guys on the floor to help out with Hansberry, because Harris Elizovich just, man, I don't trust that man on the floor, unfortunately. I'd love to say, yeah, go out there and give him more increased minutes and stuff, but just it has not been working for him. So can any of these other guys who are forwards or centers, again, Oeater, help out, give some minutes to freshen up Andre, Neve, help out with Hansberry, help out with Okani. They're just really sitting there for this whole season. I know they're red-shirting, but what does a red shirt mean in college basketball with today's world of the transfer portal? And, same with Aiden Tagaloa Nelson. If you're going to be this dual sport athlete playing on both sides, do you actually play, or are you just, keeping the bench warm? So I feel like that's some places that West Virginia could go, that Darren DeVries could go to help with the management of minutes. Because I just think you're 13 for 68 from 3 over the last 3 games. That's legs. That is just the wear and tear on the body in the Big 12. And these guys can knock those shots down. Clearly have that ability and capability. So you're playing their minutes, and you're forced to. You have to. You take Javon Small off the floor, you can see what happens real quick. But because rebounding, man, last night was a case in point in that Houston game. You can get killed on the boards, and just how demoralizing offensive rebounds are. Number 13, Jawan Roberts, and number 11, Joseph Tugler. Wow. I'm really impressed by that combination of players in the forward position. 7 offensive rebounds combined. I looked this up. Houston scored 7 times. 7 times last night on possessions in which it recorded an offensive rebound. So you got to get, one and done on offensive possessions. I don't have any sort of advanced analytics to talk about offensive efficiency, but Houston was good. West Virginia was not. Too many times West Virginia came down the floor, took up a contested shot, Easy rebound the other way for Houston, and West Virginia's got to try and give it to you. Now, I was impressed in that second half effort over the first 13 and a half minutes in the second half was awesome. Got the place rocking, reminded me just like of the Iowa State game. And that's the kind of like, okay, two anacondas waiting for you at half court type of defense that I think West Virginia can deploy with Harris, with Oconee at the top of the key. And that's where I think like these slow starts are killing West Virginia. Absolutely killing them. You can't go down 19-2 against Kansas State on the road. And then, the next night against Houston, what were they trailing at halftime by double? 38-19, something like that. You can't do that. You can't afford to get so much into a hole into the first half, and you're just fighting an uphill battle the entire way, the rest of the way, because your margin for error is so small. You have to match, if you got to match shot for shot as best you possibly can. Those runs for the other teams that's the name of basketball, are runs. And when West Virginia is playing its best, I feel like it's playing pressure defense. Dare I say it, press Virginia, bringing that back. Because, again, I know, and then that wears you out. Playing full court with a few minute, few body. So, again, need more bodies. Need more bodies on the floor to help out the cause for these guys who have been grinding this entire season, especially during this past month, the first full month of Big 12 play. If they could, West Virginia's defense in the half court has been really, really good. I haven't seen any sort of a drop-off, I feel like, between a Bob Huggins coach team now to a Darren DeVries coach team defensively. It's just now offensively, teams have figured it out, as I said on the onset about stopping Javon Small. So if you're not going to get Tucker, you're not going to get Jaden Stone, desperate times call for desperate measures, getting some more bodies on the floor, use defense to create offense as best as humanly possible. And again, if the schedule eases up, you're not going to be playing Houston every single night, that you might fare better. Now, those number of road contests I mentioned, it concerns me, especially those weekday road games. So I think Darren DeVries is just going to have to be very strategic in the way he utilizes his players down the stretch. And I tweeted this before the road Houston contest, and the West Virginia battled tooth and nail. And I love this no excuses mantra. I wish Darren DeVries could have been Neil Brown's coach whenever he was coaching football. Could have Darren have coached the football team? I love this no excuses mantra because it stands for everything that West Virginia needs as a program. Being the underdog, cutting against the grain to be a disruptor against its opponents, against the officials, everything in this Big 12 conference. You are never going to get the benefit of the doubt like a Kansas does as the blue blood within this conference. So, I love that. There's no excuses. And again, what West Virginia's already been able to do is something that it should be really proud of as a program, and these players will be able to carry with them for the rest of their lives. But that's not still to say that you can't be strategic in the way that you coach to play this long, because again, it's another 6 weeks of grueling hell having to go against some of these guys, namely on the road already, come Saturday against Cincinnati at Cincinnati. So a team that had a lot of success early on at the beginning of the season and have kind of completely fallen apart. But it's not to say that they're ever going to give up, but trying to save Javon Small in sections, Amani Hansberry, things of that nature, the minutes, there's just so much increased playing time to some of these guys. And I'm sure, they're alpha males. They're 18 to 23-year-old guys, so they figured they can do it all game, every game. And they showed they can play with anybody during in a 3-day stretch in that Atlantis tournament. It's just now doing it on a Big 12 schedule in the winter. I know there wasn't during this month some sickness went through the team right around that Arizona State game. Think that there was that led to why West Virginia lost. So I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not hitting the panic button by any stretch of the imagination because, again, I think there's still a lot to play for down the stretch into the month of February, and then definitely everything culminates in March. But I think we've now been hanging on for, it just feels like forever, on the prospect of what's going to happen with Tucker DeVries coming back, because that's leading to, I feel like, the emotional, financial investment that fans are putting into this team for this season, knowing, now, I knew it. I knew Iowa State was going to be a great crowd. Great crowd, sell out, all that jazz. And then, a weeknight game, yeah, Houston striped the stadium, still pretty good crowd. Like that, awesome. So when you're playing on the road, can you manage minutes in a way in which you're still competitive with the potential to win, when you can save some guys for whenever West Virginia comes back for a home Saturday contest? Because you're going to have a sellout. You need those wins. So March 8th against, let's go in ascending order here. So on the road, next Saturday, Utah. How does West Virginia? Huggins hates Jamie Dixon with a passion. So if Huggins was still coaching this team, I would say he would go all out 40 minutes with all the starters at TCU. But, we'll see how West Virginia coaches that game. Home against Utah, February 8th. And then there's only 2 more Saturday home games. Yeah, I talked about this in the preview to the season, that West Virginia didn't get the greatest draw when it comes to home Saturday matches up. But still, TCU, a 9 o'clock tip-off on a Tuesday, February 25th. 7 o'clock tip-off against Cincinnati at home, February 19th. 7 o'clock at home against BYU, February 11th. And then, so Utah being a Saturday game. So you see that there is some wiggle. There's not much, but you can try for it. So if West Virginia can win on the road, that's gravy, baby. But you really want to see West Virginia win those home games to help out the boost in morale, excitement for the fans, all that jazz. And that's just the name of the game as a fan of a Division I, especially a student at a Division I school, is you got to show up and support your team. So it doesn't matter if it's 0 degrees on a Tuesday and you got a test the next day. Like, the boys in old gold and blue need you. So going to be very interesting to see. Is all the stuff I'm talking about here crap? Do you agree with it? Are you somewhat frustrated again by the secrecy of around the injury situation with Jaden Stone and Tucker DeVries? How do you feel about that? Are you already very pleased with where this season is, like myself, with that win against Gonzaga, Kansas, Iowa State? Like, I'm just enjoying the journey. But if there is the possibility for that journey to continue into March and make this an awesome season where West Virginia is getting to the second weekend, I'd like to have that. I'm sorry, life's too short just to be continually playing for next year. You thought you had that in the Javon Carter era, and bam, he graduated in 4 years at the blink of an eye. So when you have those opportunities with a team that can be special, and you have a special player in Javon Small, and you can supplement him with the team's best or second best player in Tucker DeVries, let's go for it. Magic is made in March. That's, legends never die. So if you can do that in March, go on a run, I'd say it's worth it. Let's do it. So love to know your thoughts. Leave your comments here on YouTube. If you like this video, please like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. Love to have you as a subscriber. Going to be talking about the upcoming WVU baseball season here within the next week or two, previewing the 2025 schedule. Yeah, February baseball, everybody. Regular season baseball. Also, interesting thoughts on Rich Rodriguez's comments on the Three Guys Before the Game podcast. Also with some thoughts that I've been thinking as I've been watching back some old games from that Rich Rodriguez era. I'll try and bring that to you here in the next couple of days. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hail West Virginia. Let's go.